Grammy nominated. In the sign of shedding tears, all this money, power, fame, and I can't make you real.
Look, I'm coming straight off a slump. A crazy motherfucker named Nipsey. I'm turned.
I was at. It was like close, you feel me? Oh, come on, man, I'm not jumping in on.
Nipsey Hussle was not just a rapper. He is the exemplary father of 2 children, a loving husband, and the pride of Crenshaw. The one who transformed a neighborhood once filled with violence into a symbol of faith and hope. But at the age of 33, 6 bullets ended his life and opened one of the darkest mysteries in the American artistic world. However, the shock didn't stop there. Immediately after the funeral, a secret archive that Nipsey had kept for years was opened, and what was inside made people begin to suspect. A death that was unusually perfect. There is no security guard on duty, and the entire security camera system in the heart of Los Angeles, coincidentally, stopped working at that fatal moment. They say this is just a personal conflict. That's the worst lie of the year. According to experts, this is a death without explanation. Was Nipsey's death the price to pay for his career? Or was there an invisible hand that deliberately rationalized this death? If you watch this video to the end, you'll understand why his passing is even more mysterious than the death of the king of pop, Michael Jackson. It's time for fans to get the answers they deserve, and these secrets must be revealed. 1. A deal with the darkness. First, let's get on the time machine and go back to 1999. The day that marked Nipsey Hussle's rise to a core member of the notorious Rollin' 60s neighborhood Crips gang, where every legend pays with blood, and there are no exceptions. Ermias Joseph Asghedom, born on August 15, 1985 in Los Angeles, California, was raised in the Crenshaw district of South Central Los Angeles by his mother Angelic Smith and his father David Asom, an Eritrean refugee who fled to the United States to escape the Independence War in his homeland. Nipsey grew up between 2 worlds: music and the streets. At 6 years old, he already knew all the songs by the rap group Criss Cross by heart. When many other young artists signed recording contracts, the boy also had a single goal: to make music and get signed. But in Crenshaw, dreams don't pay the bills. Only violence can do that. In the 90s, Los Angeles was the epicenter of the endless war between the Crips and the Bloods. Their children don't choose to participate, they get swept up in it. Crenshaw is a maze of poverty, drugs, and guns. Here, survival is already a privilege. With Nipsey, every door was closed. The safest way to make money is just by shining shoes enough to buy a cheap microphone. But to live, you need more than that. When music couldn't support him, he turned to something Crenshaw always had available: the streets. Joining the Rollin' 60s Crips seemed like a wise move. You'd have brothers to protect you money and honor. In that world, the Crips weren't just a gang. They were the first bank to fund Nipsey's hip-hop dream. A child who used to shine shoes has become a millionaire. But in Crenshaw, whenever someone gets rich, people don't ask how. They implicitly understand that the boy signed a contract. The money from the streets helps him buy equipment, record, and set up a studio. But the underworld doesn't lend to anyone without getting something back. Every song he recorded, every dollar he earned was a debt, and that debt sooner or later must be paid, just like a credit card. But it's not as humane. In 2003, Nipsey released his first mixtape, The Middleman, which he sold by hand in his neighborhood, and became a small symbol of hope in a place where no one dared to believe in tomorrow anymore. However, when one member of the pack starts dreaming bigger, he immediately becomes a threat. At the age of 18, Nipsey returned to Eritrea with his father for 3 months. For the first time, he witnessed a self-governing black country where people like him were respected. That trip completely changed my perspective. He realized that violence is not destiny. But when he returned to Los Angeles, he immediately understood that Crenshaw wouldn't let go. There, the past never disappears. It just waits for the opportunity to return. Once you've worn the blue of the Crips, you can't wash it off. You just learn to live with it until it takes its toll. In the years that followed, Nipsey gradually distanced himself from the gang, pouring all his energy into music. In 2013, he caused a sensation by releasing the mixtape Crenshaw for Euro a copy, with only 1,000 copies printed, and Jay-Z bought 100 copies to show his support. This project helped Nipsey enter the mainstream, paving the way for his 2018 album Victory Lap, which reached number 4 on the Billboard charts, sold over 53,000 copies in its first week, and was nominated for a Grammy. He bought the entire commercial area where he was once chased by the police and built the Marathon Store, a symbol of the Crenshaw community's spirit of resilience. A man who once lived by violence is now the pride of the entire neighborhood. A story that seems like a fairy tale, a happy ending in the heart of hell. But there's one rule that never changes. Hell doesn't let anyone leave until they've paid the full price. The more successful Nipsey became, the more Crenshaw felt betrayed. Success, fame, and money are all tools he borrowed from the past. And now the past is starting to demand every penny back. Nipsey thought he had shaken off the darkness, but in reality, he was just carrying it with him. When the light shone brightest, when all of America called your name, it was that very darkness that tightened its grip on you more than ever before. In a world where loyalty is measured in blood, all favors have an expiration date. Nipsey had made a deal with the darkness since 1999, and 20 years later, it was time for the darkness to collect its due. 2. The death of a young person who wanted to live decently. Nipsey Hussle stood between two worlds, between the street and success. Those two worlds intertwined more ambiguous than the love triangle between Tupac, Faith Evans, and Biggie. No one knew where love ended and crime began. He's no longer a criminal, but he'll never be considered a Hollywood star either. It's right in the middle that's the most dangerous place. He tried to be kind in a place that worshipped violence. But in Crenshaw, helping people is sometimes more dangerous than betraying them. On March 31, 2019, 6 shots rang out in front of the Marathon clothing store. Nipsey collapsed, hit by multiple gunshots. The trigger puller, Eric Holder, once called him brother. But what America still hasn't been able to answer is why. Was it just a spontaneous conflict over the label of snitch? Or is it the result of a series of simmering tensions from many years ago? According to WAC 100, in an interview with Vlad TV, Nipsey, Cowboy, and Holder had a scuffle about a week before the shooting. Some people say yes, others say no. But clearly there was something between them that never truly ended. For Nipsey, loyalty meant protecting the community. For Holder, loyalty means keeping face at all costs. One side believes in salvation, the other believes in punishment. And when those two beliefs collide, only one thing is allowed to exist: death. But did Holder act alone? Or was he just a pawn in a larger game? Nipsey wasn't just a rapper at that time. He is sponsoring STEM education programs for children of color, planning to meet with the Los Angeles police to discuss violence prevention, and most notably is producing a documentary about Dr. Sebi, who claimed to be able to cure HIV and mysteriously disappeared afterward. A chilling question began to emerge. Was someone afraid that when Nipsey went mainstream, he would say something they didn't want the public to hear? A person who once inspired the entire Black community has now become the target of a public assassination attempt in broad daylight. And if this was truly just a personal conflict, why would Nipsey, a famous artist invested in by Jay-Z and who had spoken at the Grammys, be out without a bodyguard? You were warned that Crenshaw was still unsafe. So what made you choose to go there alone? Is it the belief that the neighborhood will protect him? Or did someone make you believe that day was just like any other? Could an artist of your caliber fall in broad daylight right in your own neighborhood without anyone hearing anything? No cameras, no clear witnesses. Is it truly just fate or a prearranged silence? Many people believe that Eric Holder was just a pawn pushed out to take the blame, and that another force was behind the assassination. He didn't cover his face, didn't flee far, leaving traces so clear they were too easy to believe. The weapon, the camera, the witnesses, everything appeared conveniently, almost incomprehensibly. Too many loopholes make people believe that everything was staged to frame him as the sole perpetrator to bring the story to a quick and tidy conclusion. Conspiracy to silence. Or is it just a terrifying series of coincidences? And if the real goal is Nipsey and the message he carried, then the more frightening question is who benefits from him being silenced forever. Clearly, there were safer ways to handle things, but what was chosen was a murder in broad daylight. Why the loudest and also the most suspicious way? After the incident occurred, the whole world was shocked. Rihanna wrote, "God may Hussle's soul rest in peace. Ice Cube and Pharrell Williams send their prayers." Drake revealed they had planned to record together a project that was left unfinished before it could even begin. But behind the tears of celebrities lies a bigger question. Why do black people who want to heal always die before they can even begin? Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Tupac. And now, Nipsey. Is it possible that when you stop rebelling and start building the world, sees you as more dangerous than ever? If Nipsey were still alive, could he have changed the next generation? Will this society do the same to the next person who dares to believe like him? Nipsey Hussle didn't die from the bullet. He died believing that the world was ready to change. And in a culture where power fears kindness, perhaps, that's the most dangerous belief a person can hold. 3. Dark past, when violence became the language. People often say Nipsey Hussle was a product of Crenshaw, but perhaps Crenshaw was a product of America. It's the forgotten land of the American dream, where schools are dilapidated, homes are abandoned, businesses have moved away, and the government has almost forgotten that the people living there still exist. In that void, children grow up with poverty, unemployment, and racial prejudice. When society no longer has a language for you to exist, violence will speak for you. Crenshaw, Compton, Watts, names that once sent shivers down the spines of Americans every time they appeared on the evening news. There, the police only arrived after the shots were fired, never before. Law doesn't come from the courts, but is established by those who were fortunate enough to survive each encounter. Gang culture doesn't arise from crime, but from fear. Afraid of being attacked, afraid of being forgotten, afraid of being worthless. The Rollin' 60s Crips Bloods in Peru were initially just self-protection networks in a society that didn't protect them. But when fear accumulates for too long, it turns into power. And power, anywhere, needs an enemy to survive. From then on, violence became the default language. In Crenshaw, to be respected, you have to beat someone up. To survive, you have to carry a gun. To be famous, you have to make others afraid. And that's why for those born there, no one truly has the right choice. Only the choice that helps them continue to live. Nipsey Hussle understood that better than anyone. He grew up with two languages, music and violence. One thing helped him breathe, the other nearly killed him. So if this society doesn't give you a place, will you make your voice heard through music or through violence? And did anyone ever teach those children that they still had a path other than pulling the trigger? Nipsey chose music? He didn't choose a gun. He didn't choose revenge. He chose a microphone. But not everyone is lucky enough to have an opportunity like yours. In a world where human worth is valued by birth code, a poor black man who wants to turn pain into music must survive long enough to hear his own voice. And that's the cruel paradox. This system gives you the right to speak, but only after you've shed blood. Hip-hop wasn't born to glorify violence, but to talk about it. The first rap songs weren't for entertainment, but to tell the truth. Stories buried in the Bronx slums. Grandmaster Flash once rapped, "Don't push me, 'cause I'm close to the edge." It's not just a song, it's the cry for help of an entire generation. Hip-hop is not just music, it's a survival diary for those left on the margins of society. And Nipsey understood that better than anyone. He once said, "I don't make music to show off, I make music to recount the war I'm living through." Nipsey's music wasn't as glamorous as Hollywood's, but full of dust, sweat, and blood. In every rap line, he speaks of poverty, pride, and the desire to be seen as a true human being. But music, no matter how powerful, was still not fast enough to save him from the bullet. In a world where violence has become a reflex, words can't keep up. Nipsey chose the microphone over the gun, but Crenshaw couldn't tell the difference between the two. There you can change the story, but you can't change the ending. So who can we blame? Blame Eric Holder, who also grew up in the same neighborhood, shared the same dreams, but fell earlier. Or blame an entire system that made those children believe that human life is only valuable when paid for with blood. Nipsey's death was not just the death of a rapper, but the death of a generation that believed they could change from within, without leaving their place of birth. Nipsey wanted to prove that you can rebuild your life without betraying your past. But this world doesn't always forgive those who want to fix it. He wasn't killed because he was hated, but because he loved that place too much. He believes in other people more than they believe in themselves. He stayed in Crenshaw because he that love could erase hatred. But Crenshaw, like any land that has been hurt, only knows how to respond to love with suspicion. And so the question still hangs in the air on the graffiti-covered walls, in the eyes of children growing up amidst the sounds of car horns and gunfire. Will the next generation choose a different path? Or will they go around in the same old circle again, believing in love only to be destroyed by that very love? Because in this America, where violence has become the mother tongue no matter how far the music travels, it still can't drown out the sound of gunfire. And Nipsey Hussle ultimately is just the most painful testament to that. 4. Legacy remains when the marathon hasn't stopped. After Nipsey died, they say Crenshaw fell silent. But it wasn't the silence of an ending, but the emptiness of an unfinished race. Because Nipsey Hussle was never just a rapper, he is a system of values, a faith of rebirth, and of a generation that believes it can redefine success for itself. The Marathon store, where he fell, is still open. But what's remarkable isn't the revenue or the number of customers, but its significance after the founder is gone. For many Crenshaw residents, it's no longer just a store, but a reminder that someone once dared to return to build and to believe that their neighborhood deserved more than violence and poverty. After he passed away, his 2 children, Amani and Cross, inherited ownership. Puma continues to regularly transfer profits from the collaboration collection with Nipsey into a trust fund for his children. But the question isn't how much money that is. It's whether anyone else is brave enough to continue the philosophy Nipsey started. A philosophy that doesn't sell products, but sells the belief that Black people can master their own future. Vector 90, the project Nipsey co-founded with architect David Gross, is still operational. This is a space where teenagers learn programming design and business model building. No halo, no cameras. Just one thing Nipsey once said: if there's an opportunity in Silicon Valley, then Crenshaw should have one too. Now every time a child in South Central writes their first line of code, it's a step forward for the marathon. And the question that arises is, why is a rapper, not the government, not the schools, the first to create real opportunities for slum youth? Nipsey did what the entire system avoids. He gave others the tools to stand up on their own. Destination Crenshaw, the public art museum project he contributed to, is still being completed. Every meter of road, every piece of graffiti art was repainted, telling the story of the Black community across generations. People call it Crenshaw 2.0. But if you look deeper, it's not just an art project. It's an effort to redefine a neighborhood once known for violence. A way of saying, we don't just exist, we create value. Nipsey started this movement, but after him, will anyone be strong enough to keep the flame from being extinguished by society's own indifference? Because if you look at Nipsey's legacy, what's scary isn't that he died, but how people reacted after he died. In the early days, thousands took to the streets, and the press mentioned him as a symbol. But just a few months later, Crenshaw was back in his old routine. Small shops are closing due to rising rents. Young people remain unemployed, and the community projects he initiated are gradually losing funding. The question is, does society truly want to change? Or does it just want to glorify death as a touching moment to then forget? Nipsey once said, "The marathon continues." But is anyone still running that race? There are young people in Crenshaw who still wear hats with that inscription, but behind their eyes is skepticism. They saw Nipsey get shot by the very people who called him brother, saw the system still not protecting anyone. So what does keep running mean when the finish line seems to never appear? Nipsey's legacy lies in a question larger than himself. Why do we always lose the people who could change the world? American history repeats that story countless times. Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Tupac, and now Nipsey. They were all people who spoke of peace, of community, of reconstruction, and they were all killed before their ideas could take root. Has this society become so accustomed to gunfire that it no longer recognizes when it kills hope? It could also be because this society worships salvation, but fears those who truly know how to achieve it. Because kind people often speak the truth, and the truth is rarely easy to hear. Nipsey dared to say that young Black people don't need pity, they need opportunity. He dares to believe that gangs can become legitimate organizations creating jobs instead of crime. But in a country where the prison system generates more income than education, will such ideas be allowed to survive? So when Nipsey's music plays, people don't just hear the beat, they hear the sigh of a society that shoots itself in the foot every time someone tries to save it. He once rapped, "I'm the type to take 2 steps back just to make a better move." But before he could take another step, he was stopped, not by failure, but by the fear of those who didn't want to see someone like him succeed. Crenshaw still bears the mark of Nipsey today, from the giant mural to unfinished projects. But what he left behind wasn't a monument. That's a principle success isn't about escaping where you were born, but about helping that place escape itself. And the question for each person is, how many people are willing to live like that, knowing that living right is sometimes more dangerous than living wrong? The marathon never stops. It's just, who is brave enough to keep running in a world that always shoots down the leaders? 5. The one who never left. They say Nipsey Hussle is gone, but the truth is, he never left this place. He still remains in every corner of Crenshaw in the graffiti-covered walls, with his image in the small store that still displays the sign, "The Marathon Continues." For many, Nipsey wasn't just an artist, but the soul of a neighborhood once forgotten by the entire United States. Every time his music plays in a corner of the cafe, it feels as if he's still walking down that street, greeting every acquaintance and talking about unfinished plans he didn't have time to complete. Nipsey didn't leave hip-hop. Hip-hop left him. And when the stage lights dimmed, leaving only the faint glow of the Crenshaw streetlights illuminating the mural of him, people finally understood that some people don't disappear. They just change shape to stay. Every year on March 31st, hundreds of people return to the corner of Slauson and Crenshaw where Nipsey fell. They didn't just light candles and cry. They played the song "Victory Lap." They told the children his story. They talked about how someone who once came from the streets dared to return to rebuild them better. No one calls it a memorial service. It's a promise of continuity. Nipsey once said, "If I fall, make my death a motivation." And that really happened. He is still mentioned every time a young person chooses a pen over a gun, every time a black entrepreneur opens their first store in their neighborhood, every time a poor child is taught how to code instead of selling drugs. The irony is that society killed him for believing in good, but it was that very goodness that made him immortal. Nipsey wasn't just a rapper who was shot dead in broad daylight. He is a businessman, a social activist, and someone who dared to risk his reputation to prove that black people don't need to abandon their roots to succeed. He believes that if Silicon Valley had a chance, then Crenshaw should too. He believes that if a black person can be punished by the system for poverty, they can also be saved by knowledge. Projects like Vector 90 and Destination Crenshaw are testaments to that vision, where children learn technology, where art tells the true stories of the black community, and where dreams are reborn from the ashes of violence. No one taught him to do that. No university will give you a degree. He taught himself through failure and paid his tuition with blood. You once said, "True success isn't about escaping where you were born, but about helping that place escape itself." And the world is now relearning that lesson from you. But justice for him remains an open question. Eric Holder was convicted, but was he really the only one who pulled the trigger? Or was he just the only one arrested, so the case could be neatly closed? Why are the details surrounding the shooting so convenient, so easy to believe, to the point where it makes people suspect that everything was arranged to bring things to a quick conclusion? Could there be forces that didn't want Nipsey to go mainstream, that didn't want him to spread messages about self-reliance, healing, and Dr. Sebi, who was silenced for claiming to cure HIV? Those questions still haven't been answered, and perhaps they never will be fully. But the bigger question is, can America protect black people when they choose to live decently? Or does it only know how to honor them after they die? For a generation that witnessed Martin Luther King, Malcolm X Tupac, and then Nipsey, this pain is not new. But every time it happens again, it still hurts, like the first time. Because each time this happens, a belief is killed. The belief that kindness can survive in a society full of violence and skepticism. Nipsey once said, "You can't change the world until you change yourself." Perhaps that is his true legacy. Not money stores or charities, but the mindset he instilled in the minds of others. A boy listening to Nipsey's music today might not know who Eric Holder is, might never have heard of Dr. Sebi, but he will know that there was someone who lived right even if the cost was his own life. A young man who was once in a gang might start rethinking his life just because of a lyric he wrote. A poor child might believe they still have a chance having seen someone like Nipsey pave the way. And perhaps that's the real victory lap. Not the album, not the Grammy, but Nipsey's life itself. A run long enough to prove that kindness doesn't die, it just gets passed on. The marathon never stops, it just changes the person holding the stick. Today, Crenshaw still bears his mark. From the towering murals to the shops still printing "The Marathon Continues" shirts. But the terrifying question is how many more people will dare to live like him, knowing that living right is sometimes more dangerous than living wrong? Will future generations be brave enough to continue that race when the finish line seems to never appear? Because ultimately, Nipsey Hussle didn't die from the bullet. He died believing that the world was ready to change. And in a society where power fears kindness, that is the most dangerous belief a person can hold. But precisely because of this, he became a symbol for those who still choose to stand up, who still choose to believe in what is right, even though they know they may never be safe. The marathon never stops. It's just a diversion. This time, it's no longer Nipsey holding the bat. As the next generation, they are the people listening to this story. And the final question still hangs in the air, not just for Crenshaw, but for all of us who will be brave enough to keep running. 6. Remain sound. Some people leave and the world becomes quiet. But Nipsey was different. After you died, the world became louder. Not because of gunfire, but because of the questions America still hasn't dared to answer. His music still resonates, but if you listen closely, you'll find it's not just about the beat. That's the voice of a generation asking, why do good people always die before they can make a difference? Nipsey became an icon, but behind the icon was a paradox. Black people are only recognized after they've passed away. After Nipsey's death, Hollywood quickly honored him. Artists wore shirts with his image printed on them. Fashion brands used the phrase, "The Marathon Continues," for promotion, and the press wrote hundreds of articles about the street hero. But then just a few months later, community projects lost funding. Children in Crenshaw still went to school. Through streets filled with gunfire, and politicians who had once shed tears remained silent in the face of injustice. Once again, America honors the victims, but doesn't change the system that created them. Nipsey never wanted to be worshipped. He just wants to be heard. But this society only hears your voice when you are silent forever. So the question now isn't who killed Nipsey, but rather, what keeps America killing people like him, over and over again? Nipsey's death not only exposed the brutality of the streets, but also the public's half-hearted morality. We mourn him, but we overlook the thousands of other Nipseys who are alive, those who are trying to change their communities every day without any cameras recording them. If Nipsey were still alive, he might not want to see his face printed on t-shirts. I would like to see a child learn to code. I would like to see a young man who was once in a gang get a decent job. He would like to see the government not only arrest black people, but also invest in where they live. That's the best thing the world can produce.
All data, analysis, and commentary in this video are presented based on information available at the time of production. The content is subject to change over time and should not be considered a definitive forecast. There is still so much more to explore. Stories of resilience, legacy, and truth. Feel free to dive into some of our top recommended videos now appearing on your